Welcome to this special edition on education. The need to transform public education is one of the most important initiatives today to facilitate the empowerment of students and educators to engage in productive 21st century learning environments. Our honored guests are Mr. Robert Runcie, the Superintendent of Broward County Public Schools. It is the largest fully accredited district in the country and the nation's 6th largest public school district, serving over 750,000 students in more than 300 schools. Joining us also is Abe Fischler, President Emeritus of Nova Southeastern University and former Chairman of the Broward School Board, who will discuss future plans and the challenges in education following these messages.
We're with Robert Runcie, Superintendent of Broward Schools, and Dr. Abe Fischler, President Emeritus of Nova University, and Dr. Cindy Burfield. A pleasure and privilege to have you all with us here today.
All right, it's a pleasure to be here.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you, sir, Mr. Runcie, if I may begin with you. Tell us a little bit about the 3-year plan that Broward County has at the present time.
Oh, the 3-year plan for Broward County Schools is focused on positioning this district to produce exceptional student outcomes for our students in the 21st century. We recognize that the education model and practices that got us to where we are today are not the same that we'll need to succeed in the future. The world has changed in a significant way. One, just from globalization and technology, has fundamentally changed the requirements for talent in the marketplace. Our students need to graduate with a different set of skill sets that are focused on developing critical thinking skills, ability to solve problems, the ability to work and collaborate with others, and communicate their ideas effectively. That context needs to occur on a global level as our students compete, not just here in Florida, not just in the United States, but around the world. The other challenge that we know that's out there is that in the United States, and in Florida in particular, the context for public education has changed from one where we no longer are a monopoly, if you will. We have competition from charter schools. Charter schools, I believe, will ultimately make us better through competition because it's going to force us to really compete, not only based on outcomes, but even things as simple as our customer service. Our customers, our parents have options, and we need to recognize that. Finally, in a world of tight finances where everybody's watching every penny, we have to make sure that we can do more with the dollars that we have and take that to the greatest extent possible. And so our focus on the financial side is to continue to work our business model in this district so we can invest in what we know matters, our teachers and our students. That's ultimately where the rubber meets the road. And so that's where we're moving for the next several years. There are 3 components to the strategic plan for the district. First is high quality instruction. That's the focus of what we do. Everything needs to be aligned to that. Secondly is continuous improvement. We need to get better and better every day, every week, every month, every year in everything we do, from what we're doing in the classroom to how we deliver services to how we clean our schools, all aspects of our operations. And then finally, we got to do a better job of communicating the great things that are going on in Broward County. We have exceptional set of teachers. Student achievement is phenomenal in this district. We know there are areas where we need to do better, but I can tell you there's a lot of exciting things going on in this district, some of the leading things in the country. And just a couple minutes to walk through the major component which I am so heavily focused on, which is high quality instruction. Several things there. One is we have got to get better at prioritizing our resources and programs in schools. We have developed in public education a compliance culture, a culture where everyone's kind of looking for the silver bullet program to basically get things done. We've got to limit the number of programs and things that we actually put in schools, and we've got to prioritize what works. The other piece is alignment. if you look starting at the federal government, down to state government, down to local schools, there are a whole bunch of competing policies, programs that really aren't aligned and create disconnects that negatively impact our ability to execute on a local level. So we're going to work really hard to ensure that as we implement Common Core standards, which moves us from a world where it's not just about memorizing content or just building your understanding of content, it's about how you can apply what you know to solve problems. So Common Core sets a whole different set of expectations and standards in terms of what instruction looks like in a classroom, and we need to move to a more personalized learning model. We need to align the professional learning that we give our teachers around that as well. And we have a lot of professional development. It's all over the place. It needs to be strategically focused, and we need to make sure that we clearly understand the difference between participating in professional development and professional learning. I can sit in classes and curriculum and get my certifications all day, but am I really learning, and is that translating into different results in the classroom? And finally, we know we have challenges with the assessment and accountability systems in the state. We're trying to move to Common Core, but we have a legacy assessment system that's based on FCAT. So alignment is pretty critical. And third, I would say technology has to finally come of age in public education. It's still at the periphery. You know, we'll have smart boards, we'll have projectors, kids are using PowerPoint, Excel, etc. But the fact of the matter is it's not integrated in a seamless way in the education process where students are using technology to drive the pace of their learning, to engage and control what they're actually doing, and develop personalized learning experiences in the classroom. And that can happen. Technology can drive a lot of that. So I spent some time really talking about the instructional piece because it's pretty critical. There are other initiatives we have going on in the other couple areas, but that's the biggest one.
That's the most important one.
Yes, absolutely.
When are we able to revamp much of what we teach to what students want to learn?
This year we are launching a very exciting initiative called a Digital 5. And our initial thought was we wanted to equip all of the 5th grade classrooms, the students and the teachers across the entire district, with technology, tablets and or computers, and provide digital content, digital curriculum, digital experiences, digital assessments, create an environment where students control the pace, the path of their learning in a very personalized way. We're going to impact about 3,000 students, probably about a third of the 5th grade classrooms across the district. It will be and establish a vision of how technology can be used to develop real personalized learning environments, and we're pretty excited about that, and we'll start that at the opening of school this year.
I'd like to ask you a question, Dr. Burfield. How do you find the implementation of this?
Oh, I think it's fantastic. I've heard of the Digital 5, where you have the technology there, and what about the training that goes along with it?
You know, that's a great question. You're absolutely critical. Technology can't run itself. At the end of the day, the success of any technology that's out there and its true ability to impact education is going to be a function of how the teachers embrace it, how they adapt to it, and how they use it. And my experience has been it takes approximately 6 months, maybe a little longer, for teachers to fully adjust to this new method. So this first year, I think we're going to see some good outcomes, but you know, we're going to set appropriate expectations. I think it's, you know, it's going to bring us to where our teachers came into public education. They really want to teach. I don't think they want to spend the majority of their time trying to help students figure out how to answer questions on a bubble sheet exam to get a certain score. I think if we give our students the skills, they'll do well on any assessment that's out there. So I think this is a critical time in the history of this country. We have huge dropout rates in this country, 1.2 million students dropping out every year. We have a huge gap in the workplace. We have 3 million jobs that are going unfilled, yet we have an unemployment rate that exceeds 8%. So that skills gap is definitely prevalent in those two statistics. So we've got to make a fundamental shift in where we are. I firmly believe that the future of this country is not going to be determined any longer based on, how extensive our factories are and how many factories we have, or who's got the greatest amount of military equipment and weapons of mass destruction. Is going to be about who has the strongest education system. Yes. And though that country is going to be the economic superpower of the 21st century. I think America can get there, but we're starting to fall behind. We need to invest in education right now. We need to put the right leadership in our districts at all levels, and we need to have a relentless focus on supporting teachers, building their capacity, and delivering new instructional methods in our classroom.
As a Broward County school teacher, I think we're headed in the right direction. I've experienced a couple of workshops recently. Last week there was one, the STEM problem-based learning cadre, and I like to see how we're moving more in the direction of, rather than spoon-feeding the teachers all the information, we're setting up a model whereby they are experiencing for themselves the type of learning that they will be facilitating amongst their students. Right. So for that type of learning to be occurring, I think is a wonderful step in the right direction.
Yeah, I've always thought it interesting that we talk about changing teaching practices in the classroom, yet the training,
but the colleges are not doing.
Yeah, that we subject the adults to.
No.
Is
it doesn't
pretty
align,
much
but
is a different model. So I think you're spot on with that.
It's great.
We got to practice what we preach,
yes,
and it's got to be integrated from the top down. And so, we're excited about where we're going again with that. And we restructured the district, as you know, from 3 major areas, each run by an area superintendent, and we moved and created what we call the cadre model. And the whole point of the cadre model is to develop an environment where we're creating professional learning communities among a group of principals from a diverse set of schools where they're learning from each other, they're visiting each other's schools, they're sharing best practices, and they're figuring out how to get better. And if we do that across the system, now we're going to start having systemic change in our schools, because at the end of the day, the success of a school is not so much determined by the amount of financial resources we put in there. It's not so much determined by the amount of programs we put in. It's really about the culture in that school, how the adults work together, their ability to have honest conversations using data to drive their instructional strategies. Once you have that, you're going to have great outcomes in the school, and that's what we need.
Culture starts at the top.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, and so we're trying to support our principals to make that move at the schools. I know it's a challenge because we still have FCAT that they have to deal with, and we're telling them, look, let's really shift our thinking and what we're doing. So it's going to be an interesting year as we transition from where we are now into the educational models that we need for the future.
And the principals, I think, nowadays have to get their feet wet, and they have to be not only administrative leaders, but they have to be learning leaders themselves.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. In most countries, the principal's called the headmaster. It was interesting. I was at an event this Saturday, and someone from one of the Caribbean islands was mentioning one of our schools that they just thought the principal was, just fabulous. They were really excited about the school, the leadership there, and they continued to refer to the principal not as the principal but as the headmaster, right? Because the headmaster means that you're the top instructional leader in the school. And unfortunately, and this is true in Broward as it is across the country, if you were to go poll principals and you were to actually ask them how much of their time they're spending on instructional versus non-instructional, in most cases they'll probably tell you they're spending 70-75% of their time on non-instructional administrative management things. And obviously the smallest percentage at best, 20-25% on instructional. We believe that should be flipped around.
Absolutely.
So we're working on that. We're trying to take as much as we can off of our principals' plates And this year we're going to have a real honest conversation with them, and we're going to start asking our principals through a series of conversations, what kind of resources do you need from the central office in order to be successful to move your students over a multi-year process and continue to move student achievement? What resources and supports do you need? Secondly, what programs and initiatives are we spending money and effort on putting into your schools that you don't need really? And if you could, you would reallocate those resources to higher priority needs. And I think those conversations are going to get us to two things. One is going to get us a list of priorities of what we need to focus on to support the schools. Secondly, it's going to give us a list of things that we need to stop doing because we've got to change what we've doing. And
sometimes too much is too much.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's not easy, but it's not easy.
It's not easy.
Higher education.
It's hard to ask people who've been doing some things for a long time, hey, should we stop what you're doing? But I tell you what, the principals know they're accountable for outcomes in the school. And I look at this as a war.
But not FCATs only.
Right, not FCATs only, right? Yes. You know, the war for public education is absolutely going to be fought on a front line. And we need to recognize that the way you fight wars is by letting the people that are on the front line call the shots. You look at how we deal with Afghanistan, Iraq, the soldiers call in airstrikes, they call in resources in real time. They don't send a note back to a general 5 miles back and wait for a few hours till it gets up to the front. And, you know, by that time you've got a whole different set of circumstances. Yeah,
and they're professionals, and these people in the schools are there, and they are professionals and educated, and they need to have that control to make those shots because school A and school B might have two separate sets of needs, and for that.
But even in the same classroom, you can have students exercising their interests.
Right.
And
that's why we're empowering.
Right.
We're empowering. I see it just last week. We are now empowering the teachers. Yes, you need to make those decisions. You need to create these unit plans and all of that. That whole mindset of spoon feeding the kids is going.
I think I mean just from standing back and looking at it, it's a lot of work, right? If you think about it, why would we pay a whole bunch of teachers, highly qualified folks, for example, to each develop their own, let's say, algebra lesson plans for the year, right? When, we take a handful of them and just develop something that's really good, deliver that consistently, and then their job becomes one is how do you actually work with kids in an individualized basis, facilitating the learning they need, be there as a coach, ask the right kind of questions, help move them along. But I mean, if you're
why do I have to learn if that's what the kid's asking?
Right, and we need to basically get that. And here's why you have to learn. This is how you would apply it. But if you're spending all of your time just trying to give them like the content, it's a problem. So we have some teachers that are taking advantage of things like Khan Academy, and I know that's I think that's a start. We're gonna have to have more robust solutions than that. But one of the teachers, she sends the students home. When they're at home, they actually go through all the content. They use Khan Academy. When they get in the classroom, they're actually doing homework. This is over at one of our middle schools. Yeah, she has a flipped classroom going on at Nova. Real exciting. But the kids come in there, they're doing work. They're like solving problems. They're showing the answers and the solutions in real time. It's a really exciting environment. Yeah, it really is.
It's a great, exciting time too. I think it's all those innovative ideas and practices, if you will. But
we did a good job on that.
You did an outstanding job. Yeah.
Speaking of frontline troops, Dr. Burfield happens to be in the front lines, and both of you share, among many other things, the vision of transforming education. Dr. Fischler forever has been writing on this, and in fact, you as well. How do you see the future with regard to transforming education, Dr. Fischler?
He's talking about it. It's easy for us to talk about it. It's going to take a couple of years. My first question was, what would you like to see in 5 years? He said he's showing you what he hopes to have in 3 years. Every school where kids are involved in learning, developing the skills of the 21st century, knowing where information is, knowing how to process it, and not expecting somebody to have the information to give them, even though he could ask. When they ask me a question, I always tell them, where do you think you can go to find out?
Right, right.
What tools do you need?
Yeah.
You weren't here when I spent 3 years convincing the school board to spend money to put internet into every classroom. $144 million. I thought we'd be much further along.
Than we are now, yeah.
That took 2 years just to get them to
Well,
approve it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, what happens is, you put a lot of this infrastructure and you put these tools in, and then what happens is people tend to figure out how to mold all that to their current way of doing business. Right. So you really don't get any change. Yeah, I gave you all this technology, smart board into a whiteboard, right? You're not doing a lot of the same things.
It's true.
But, to be fair to a lot of folks, unless you give people the opportunities and the space to learn and psychological safety, if you will, to begin to change from what they're doing, it becomes a challenge.
They need to make mistakes
that's the best way to learn.
Yes.
It really is.
It's a parallel. We have teachers who have been out there and who are great teachers, but the type of pedagogy has to change. So to give them that space and to let them have a little bit of a rope to play around with it is the same type of learning that we're asking the kids to do. So then they can experience it. Situated learning theory says, let me experience it firsthand, and then I can understand how I can apply it.
So what's your sense among your colleagues, teachers that are out there dealing with a lot of these challenges every day? I know there's a lot that's being thrown at teachers, a lot of expectations. In addition to all the things we've talked about, we've changed your world now that is pay-for-performance model coming out. We're going to try to be as fair in that as we can. I'm trying to get a sense of how our teachers are gravitating and trying to really move down this future.
I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you talked about how hopefully we'll try to look at what we're doing and look at all these top-down inputs and ask the principals in the schools what's working and what do we need to kind of push to the side so we can narrow our focus, so we can all work together as a school to accomplish the goals that we need to and to become a learning community.
Let me play the devil's advocate. The federal bureaucracy is now put more pressure on teachers based on student performance as the federal government sees it.
Yes.
Because all of a sudden, if the students are not doing well on an examination, then the teacher is being punished.
And those
And the
examinations
school
are
is
changing
being
them.
judged
Yes.
not on some of the skills that he's talking about, but on how they respond to the questions that they're being asked.
Right.
And so if the test is measuring content knowledge...
Versus skills mastery is a different...
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
So he's talking much more process, while the federal
The
bureaucracy
collaboration,
can't
the
control
critical
that.
thinking. Yes. They're struggling with the new tests that they're rolling
Well,
out.
they're not even... You're talking about the PARC assessment?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a sense that, PARC is just not going to make it on time. It's going to be out in the parking lot still.
PARC is going to be...
Yeah, it's just... And so the question is, what are you going to have in an interim? To continue with a legacy system that had a purpose at a certain point in time, FCAT, I just really think that's unacceptable. So I think we need to start looking around the world even and see what we can borrow. There's probably other things that we have here in the United States that we can leverage. There's some talk about leveraging the College Board assessments, for example, right? Where, we've got SATs, ACTs, PSATs. Should we use that as a base and expand on that, at least for the college and career readiness piece?
Sure.
There's never been, in my view, a really strong assessment for K through 2, right? We really focus on the first major year of testing, which is 3rd grade, and the reality is that these formative years of real early childhood, early learning years are the ones that we really need to have a huge impact so that those students are on the right trajectory. And that's been kind of pushed to the background by our system. So hopefully as we go forward that we're going to pay a lot of attention to getting kids better prepared before they show up for school, and then when they're in pre-K, kindergarten, first, second grade, that we're doing the best job possible, because if we set the right foundation for them, it's going to be, you know, a whole different world when they get into the middle grades in high school.
Yes, I agree.
You see it when you go to watch the university school, where we put in, we started at that preschool, creating that school, 0 to 5. Those kids, when they come to first grade, they're reading and they're writing and they're finished with Dean's blocks and all of the things.
And they have these inquisitive minds. You know, they're just out there wanting to learn. You know.
Yeah, you know, in my sense, you know, going back to your first question, you know, where do we see things, you know, a few years from now? But you know, it's my hope to continue this work, this journey, this mission that we're on, to create a whole new generation of students. And it's going to take a whole generation, you know, cycle. The students that are coming in the system now, you know, where are they going to be 10 years from now, 12 years from now, is something that we should see. It looks totally different than where we're at today. In the meantime, we got to make sure that we're doing right by the students that we have in our system today. Across the board, our students that are struggling, students that are gifted. We have over 30,000 exceptional needs students in the district. We believe that we can do a better job servicing all of them, so we're going to actually do a comprehensive review of our operations and how we deliver services, everything from our IEPs to how we execute against those IEPs. We need to get better at that. And I think, you know, if you really want to talk about personalized learning, there's no group of professionals that have actually done it better than our special education teachers. And so I think a lot of the practices they have can actually benefit the entire the entire pedagogical process and all students.
Yes. All their strategies. You know, we use those strategies in the regular. The district is doing a lot of good stuff with STEM and science.
Oh, yeah. I spent 50 years of my life because I started off as a science teacher. And I found, and I found out, I said to myself, science is a verb, it's not a noun. They don't have to know about thallophytes and bryophytes and all that stuff, because that's what we were teaching in the biology. Now I'm 85.
Yeah, it took all that time, but
yeah, we got to move faster than that in this century. The pace
I'm delighted you're here. I really am, and we needed somebody who came out from a different viewpoint.
But you know, I'm really excited to build off of the legacy, Dr. Fischler, that you've established here.
Well,
you know, really, the community is really indebted to your contributions in education, both in, you know, our K-12 system as well as the colleges. I mean, you've got a K-20 mindset, and you've been living that. So you almost can't talk about education in Broward County without talking about Dr. Fischler.
Well, so, I'm delighted that you're here and picking up and moving forward.
Yeah, trying our best.
Well, I want to thank you so very much for being with us today. Real pleasure. Abe, I can't reach.
See, that's all right. That's all right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations on your doctorate.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
This brings us to the end of our special show for today. Thank you for being with us.